Welcome inside another episode of Point to the Passer. It is early mid-July. I am here with Jonathan. We are back on the mic for the Mike Malone era. Jonathan, it has been, I don't even want to say, we've done this rodeo how many times where we try to get back on, get back off, get back on, but it is really good to see you. We've had a lot of things going on the last few months, Carolina basketball-wise and our personal lives, trying to get back on it. So, new era, new hype. I think this is a good time for us to dive into everything. And boy, do we have a lot to dive into. Again, another year, another new roster with only a few returners. So I just want to start from the top. How are you doing? And man, what do we have to be excited about this year? We're going to get into all the things.
I'm good, Craig. I'm really excited to be talking Carolina basketball again with you. And there is, like you said, a lot to talk about. There's some of the typical milestones of the summer offseason that have happened here recently with the Carolina basketball school camp games and summer scrimmages. So you get to see Craig's repping the Carolina basketball school today as well. If you're on YouTube watching, and with the scrimmages, you get to see the first flashes, first glimpses of this new roster. And with this era of college basketball, the portal hall's in and out, and this is again a completely remade team, especially with a new coach coming in, like you said, in Michael Malone. So excited to get into what we've seen so far in the offseason, but also expectations, what we're intrigued and excited about going into the roster and thinking about the season. And then we still have Summer League coming up that we're excited to talk about with Caleb Wilson and Henry Vasar in Summer League, and we'll get into that a little bit too. So definitely a lot going on. Excited to get into it.
Those who have listened know that I'm not the biggest NBA fan, but that really kind of changed this year. This is the first like NBA draft I think I've ever really sat down and watched. I was texting you and Badams about it throughout because the hype was real. You obviously had Caleb Wilson, but you had all these other big names in college basketball. So summer league is just a really exciting time to watch some of those heels suit up and play, and especially stoked on Caleb. I mean, going fourth overall, and how fitting is it that he ends up at the Bulls? I mean, I'm not saying there's a parallel to another Carolina player, but I'm not also not saying there's not. We saw what he's capable of this past season.
But he kind of did. He alluded to it, and it was cool. Just his pre-draft media availability and coverage. He just so excited to be at that next level and how focused he is, but also he constantly is promoting the University of North Carolina and the Carolina basketball program, and that's amazing to see too, and something honestly that Carolina has needed. It's been talked about a lot, not having a top five pick in the NBA draft since 2005, all the way back when it was Marvin Williams went number two and Raymond Felton went number five overall. So to have that top five pick and somebody that experts out there are saying this could be the best overall player in the draft, down the road has the highest ceiling. That means a lot. So excited to see his first flashes against Summer League, and he'll get a chance to go up against all those other guys, the three who went ahead of him in Cam Boozer and Darren Peterson and AJ DeBanza in Summer League, which I think should be electric to watch as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was electric to see him go against those guys in college, and he's already putting word out. Hey, watch out for C-Dub as Rookie of the Year, and I'm fully on board. I believe it. Like again, we saw what he's capable of. So we're gonna get into some summer league chat coming up later in the episode, but first, do want to kind of start from a 30,000 foot view of what this roster for Carolina looks like going into the upcoming season, first season under Mike Malone. One of our more recent episodes. Back in April, we talked about the Mike Malone hiring. We've had some time to kind of sit with it now. So I'm excited about it. I think, like every year, rosters are changing and you don't have the recognizable faces, but we do have at least one recognizable face from down the road in Raleigh in the form of Matt Abel. A big star in Raleigh this past year, showed a lot of potential. Let's start there with him. Looking at 22 minutes a game, he was playing as a freshman over at NC State and shooting 35% from three. So that's a great baseline to start from. What do you think he can develop into for Carolina, and how important is he going to be, especially as a 3-point shooter on the catch and shoots?
I think that's the big question is how does he take a leap from year one to year two? And can he really take more of a prominent role now that he's at UNC in both, well, offensively, I'd say especially because they're going to need him this year with this roster to be one of their primary scorers and one of their primary pieces offensively. And then I think he can be hold his own defensively as well. But part of that leap is going to be continuing that consistency from 3-point range, like you said. He's an excellent catch and shoot player from three. He also is really good navigating around screens and going around screens to uh, hit, catch, and shoot perimeter shots. So that's something that this team desperately needs. And like you said, 35.5% as a freshman on 4 attempts a game. So that's something that like to see that number even go up a little bit more. But they're going to need him to be that primary 3-point shooting threat this season. Um, I think the other thing from him is he got a lot of buzz this offseason going through the combine experience. And he was one of the top, he was 11th in some of the shooting drills for spot up shooting. 17 out of 25 from three in that drill. So he opened some eyes, or I think really validated what people were seeing from his first year at state already. And then in some of the scrimmages, you saw him on the ball a little bit more. So I'd like to see the second year is, can he be a little bit more of a playmaker beyond just a 3-point specialist? He's also really good in transition as well and can finish with both hands. So I think that's the question is, can he go from a guy who was more of a role player at state, who now is going to be expected, I would guess, play 30 plus minutes a game, but also be one of the top 1 to 2, maybe 3 offensive pieces. So how does he adjust in that new role is going to be a question. But I expect him to show off his full, well-rounded game, and he's got 3-level scoring ability as well. So I have big expectations for Abel in year two.
Yeah, I do too. I went to several NC State games, just living in Raleigh, being a college basketball fan, and the sparks that I saw from him were high. And so I think coming into a Mike Malone system, a lot of times, college players, at least years ago, you always saw at Carolina that leap from either freshman to sophomore, or really sophomore to junior year. So I'm hoping Matt Abel kind of trends that direction and can really be an essential component of this team. He's going to be working along some good names beside him in Neo Avdalas and Terrence Brown. Let's start with Terrence Brown as more of the point guard and the leader of this team. That's obviously somewhere where Carolina lacked last year. We clearly had the size, and Vesar and Wilson being our top two scorers and our consistent big to big rotation down there. That was great. That is a question this year. It's kind of like we've kind of gone, yin and yang with teams the last couple of years, from having the size, not having the guards, having the guards, not having the size. If you could look at the last 5 years and pick and choose, there are some really good rosters in there. Do we put it all together this year? We'll see. But let's focus on the guards, and later on we maybe get to more of the size. But Terrence Brown really could be a get to the rim kind of guy. Not as efficient, obviously, as a 3-point shooter. That could develop, but he is a pretty high volume scorer in the games that he did play out west.
He absolutely is, Craig. He was almost 20 points a game. I think he was at 19.9 points a game for Utah last season at Fairleigh Dickinson. Before that, he's a high volume scorer. He's one of these guys who's going to put up a lot of shots. And that's going to be my biggest question that we can get into a little bit later. But he was 15 plus shots a game for Utah last season. He had to be the guy. That was not a good team. They were 16th out of 16 in the Big 12. Very good league, obviously, but that's uh, putrid. Won 2 games in league play, not good at all.
Yeah.
So they really struggled, but he carried them offensively. And like you said, his best asset on that end of the floor is his ability to be explosive, to take people off the dribble and get to the rim at a really high level. His numbers at the rim: 141 for 253, 55.7% at the rim last season. That is very good if you're talking about guards finishing at the rim. That included 20 dunks as well for a guy who's not that
Mhm.
big. I think he's what, 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah, that's an
So
impressive number to me.
it is. So he's somebody who is not afraid to go up in traffic. Might remind you a little bit of Caleb Love taking off from anywhere and just being really aggressive. And uh, but I think with Brown, you're going to see him. He tends to finish at a little bit higher level, where Love at times would overestimate his own athleticism at times, where he'd come flying in and just try to do posters that a lot of people wouldn't dream of. Uh, so I'm excited to see what Brown can do. I do think he's going to be and needs to be one of the leading scorers on the team. He's a score first guard. My question for him though is, uh, does he get tunnel vision sometimes, right? And Does he try to do a little bit too much? And how does he integrate himself into the rest of the offense now that he's going to be playing with better players around him? And you would think a better team overall than he was last year. How does that work? Can he pick his spots a little bit better? And also, can he improve his shot selection? Because again, he was high volume, 45%, a little over 45% overall from the field, but only 32.7 from three, and 3 for 22 from January 31st on. It's really struggled down the stretch from three. So those are the questions: is can he improve his perimeter shot enough to keep teams honest? And then also, can he pick his spots and really integrate what he does into the flow of the offense?
Yeah, that'll be fascinating to see. As you mentioned, being the lead on a team with not much support is a totally different picture than having those guys like Matt Abel and Neo on the wing, even Jaren Stevenson, who can hit the three or end up driving to the basket. So I think part of this is going to be a learning experience with him adapting to a new system and a new program. But to be fair, that's going to be everybody, right? Because we're under Mike Malone. I
Mhm.
mean, Jaren last year, got used to the Hubert style, and then now is going to have to learn a new system under Coach Malone. So a lot of unknowns, but I think there is a lot of high ceilings here with some of these players. And one of the ones I do think is kind of a big X factor is Neo of Dallas transferring in from Virginia Tech. So let's talk about him and how he kind of fits into the system. He's just one of the bigger guys on this team, and really can flex from point guard all the way down to what, a three or four.
Yeah, potentially. He has a lot of versatility. I think he's really more of a big guard, but because of his size, you can move him around. And I think it's really fascinating. He was the first target for Michael Malone, right? He was the first portal target and committed pretty soon after Carolina going after him. So he's clearly a focal point centerpiece of this team. And one of the things we didn't talk about as much with Brown is he is a score first guard, which also means, well, his assist numbers were still decent at Utah. That's not really his game, facilitating. And so Neo, that is what he can do. He has great vision at 6'9". We saw some clips recently come out of practice with some nice two-man work with him and Maximo Adams, who's coming in as a freshman. And he just shows really good vision to be able to whip passes all around the court. He should be really good in the pick and roll as well. Uh, but he's going to need to probably be the de facto point guard. I think there are questions there as well. He's going to be going up against quicker players, quicker, smaller guards who are aggressive and will force the issue defensively. He struggled with that at times last season at Virginia Tech, and they eventually moved him off the ball late in the season. So, how does he adjust? Because I think the best version of this team is Neo as the point guard with Terrence Brown getting the ball in his hands to make plays situationally, right? Because he's going to have those opportunities to break people down, get to the rim, but it's going to be Neo that's going to be spreading it around. And I think what's really intriguing about him is, have we ever had a point guard that's this tall at Carolina? I can't think of
No,
one.
I don't think
Uh,
so.
You have examples recently in college basketball of guys like Jaeger Demon at BYU, who's about the same size, and Kasparis Giacochonis at Illinois the same season, 2 years ago. So there are examples of it, but he's a unique player. And I think if he can, and Malone, I think that's the biggest thing for him is working with Michael Malone. Can Malone elevate his game? Can he take a step forward from an inefficient season at Virginia Tech, shooting the ball, but also some turnover issues as well? Can you see more of the best of him? Because he had some huge games early. He had the 33-point game against Providence in the second game of his college basketball career. And at that point, I think you and I talked about it at the time, like this, there was a lot of hype around him coming out of Greece to Virginia Tech, and he might really take off and be one of the stars of the ACC. And it didn't materialize. He was up and down. And for a lot of these international guys coming over, it does take a season to really adjust. So he's come in, he's talked about it in interviews with Inside Carolina about the fact that there was a real adjustment for him coming over to college basketball, the adjusting to the athleticism, the length on defense, but also the intensity. There's differences in how these guys are trying to make a name for themselves and elevate their stock on day in, day out. He also played a lot more games than he did previously in Greece, where I think he played more like 18 games in a season in his role professionally versus 30 plus
Hmm.
at Virginia Tech. So uh, questions there, but I think his uniqueness, his playmaking ability, and I think he's a better shooter than he's shown. He was back in Greece his last season. He was a little over 40% from 3-point range, not on high volume, but I will say just his shot looks pretty smooth. And I think if he can improve his shot selection, just take better shots within the flow of the offense. And again, much like Terrence Brown, Virginia Tech didn't have they had some good players around him, but I think this Carolina team has enough other scorers like Abel and Brown to take the pressure off of him that hopefully he can take better shots within the flow of the offense and see his efficiency numbers go up as a result.
Yeah, totally. Again, I think he's really an X factor. And you mentioned the 1 year kind of getting international players taking some time to adjust. I think Luca is someone who struggled with that in all likelihood last season, and so I'll be interested to follow him and see how he plays elsewhere. But hopefully that adjustment for Neo is kind of complete. He's used to the system and the different style of ball, and he can come in and be a really good fit. So excited to watch that. Speaking of players on last year's roster, like Luca, and we know Luca's gone, but Jaren, in a day and age of not much loyalty, wanting to come back to Hill last year, and now willing to stay and be a part of this, and I think it's just where he wants to be. He is really someone who I'm excited about for next year, and I think he's kind of flown under the radar a little bit. He had his ups and downs. His 3-point shooting wasn't great last year. I think he was sometimes a little soft to finish at the rim, but when Caleb and Vesar went out last season. I think it was the Pitt game that I was at where he really stepped it up. And I know we're talking about Pitt, but I think the potential there for Jaren to get a little bulkier in the offseason and to work on his shot could be a really good fit to this team. So I'm just curious generally. And then after this, we'll get into some more like high level roster grades and some of the national chatter. But what are your thoughts on Jaren returning and how he fits in with the system? And honestly, what do you hope to see development wise from him?
I think it's huge, honestly. You need some level of continuity in this day and age of college basketball. We've talked about that a lot, and especially with a new staff coming in, new head coach who's not coached in college basketball as a head coach ever and hasn't been in college basketball for what, like 20 plus years,
Hmm.
back to when he was an assistant.
Right.
So it's really big. I think the other piece is Michael Malone was around this team all last fall, right? Because his daughter is at UNC on the volleyball team. So he's seen these guys in practice. So the fact that he prioritized certain guys to make sure we need you back next season also stands out to me. And Jaren was a guy after that freshman season at Alabama. And unfortunately, that was that Alabama team that knocked out Carolina in the Sweet
Mhm.
16. But arguably his best college game came that next game in the Elite Eight against Clemson, where he really lit it up from three, played really well, and showed that potential that's been there as a stretch four that hasn't really materialized throughout his 3 seasons in college. But Michael Malone was looking at him for the Nuggets at the time, so he sees things in Jaren. I think it'll be interesting to see how does he use him.
Mhm.
It's 3 years in college, two at Alabama. We know Nate Oates' system. He basically was a 3-point corner specialist, right? He's sit in the corner, shoot a lot of threes, shot over 100 threes and only around 30% or so. And he was still around 30% than this last season. Not as much sitting in the corner, but there was a good amount of that. That's the way that Hubert's system was set up. But what I saw from him last year that I liked was more getting into the paint and doing some of the dirty work, getting physical, working on his rebound numbers. He
Mhm.
elevated those numbers and he's got good footwork inside. And so we saw more of that, especially when Caleb went out. I think they're going to need him to play some kind of true power forward
Mhm.
style of play because the other guys, the big guys they have coming in, they're maybe not set up as much that way outside of Maximo Adams, who is probably an undersized 3-4 for a power forward. He's a little undersized, but he's going to be physical. So I think that would be interesting. But yeah, I have big expectations for Jaren. I'm excited to see with a different system, can he take that next step forward and realize some of the lofty expectations he had coming out of high school? I don't know about that, but I think at least you want somebody who's solid that provides some quiet leadership. He's a quiet guy, really nice kid, but keeps building on that physicality that he started to show towards the end of last season.
Yeah, I think he's going to take on that kind of leadership role like Seth did. Seth wasn't ever, overly vocal. Kind of in the background, like making sure his team is locked in the locker room and focused, and always spouting words of encouragement and really stepping up in the games when he needs to. And I hope that Jaron, just coming from the experience that he's gotten over the last year, really takes it seriously. It takes that leadership role seriously with all these newcomers coming in, because I do think that's going to be important. And you have guys like Isaiah Dennis and Jaden Young returning, but they're still younger. They didn't get as much playing time. Like Jaron really needs to be your guy in every team. That's one thing that's been a constant for any team ever, is that you need that leader, right? In any sport. And so I think he's going to be a huge component. And I do hope his game continues to develop, particularly 3-point shooting. But yeah, that and a little more physicality and rebounding. I mean, the size is potentially an issue, and the strength down low. So he's going to have to be one of those guys. So all that being said, a lot of the national chatter, some up, some down on Carolina. What have you seen the last, I would say, month or so, as this roster's really started to come together? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And what's your overall take? And we can kind of both chime in on this, but I want to start with you and where Mike Malone's grade is and what's the ceiling for this team.
Yeah, it's been interesting as always, to hear the national
Sure.
responses to a new Carolina team, especially one with a new head coach like Michael Malone. And I'd say overall, the response has been skeptical to critical in terms of how this
Hmm.
offseason has gone. But I'll couch that with saying, I think overall, and Field of 68 is one national media outlet that they've talked about Carolina recently. And one of the things they brought up was, look, that what we're talking about with this year one in our expectations versus Michael Malone year two and after that are different, because they expect him to figure it out, because he is an incredibly hardworking, one of those people who is, I think, really obsessed with basketball in a positive way. I mean, he clearly lives this, breathes this, and he's showed that and how he showed up already uh, in the offseason. And I think he'll do the same once you get into the season as well. But um, so that's been something that I think they're looking more at long term. There's some optimism, but right now, Field of 68 especially, pretty skeptical to critical about this roster. They just don't feel like the talent is there overall. Rob Doster from Field of 68 said that he expects them not to be a top 25 team this year. He's down on
Hmm.
Carolina overall. Another national media member, Isaac Trotter with CBS Sports, I feel like he has a more maybe middle ground, like realistic take, that he's looking at Carolina as not a national contender. They're not going to be a championship contender, and has them fifth in the ACC, which I think is fair, just given all the unknowns that we have about this team. But some of the things he mentioned was the backcourt we talked about already. Those three guys of Abel, Brown, and Abdallas, they're going to have to be the strength of this team. And if that doesn't work, if they don't fit together, because they're all three of those guys are unique pieces, and they're going to have to figure out how to work together effectively to maximize what each of them do. The other thing he mentioned was defensively, there are real question marks. Abdallas is not the most athletic player, and we saw some with Luka. You get the Luka comparison. They're very different players, but I think I have concerns about him being beat off the ball. And can he keep up with guards on the ball? Can he hold his own on that end of the floor? Abel was decent defensively, but he's not an elite defender. And Brown hasn't shown that either, although he has the athleticism, I think, to maybe improve there this year. So there's real questions on that end. And then the front court is a huge question mark, because
Hmm.
without Henry Vasar coming back, I mean, that's been the consensus too. If Vasar came back, he's a preseason All-American. He's somebody that elevates this roster to potentially a contender, definitely a top 10 to 15 type of team, I think. And they have talented guys coming in Seyon Kaita and Alexandros Semajorov, but neither of those guys have played college basketball before, and they're going to take time to
Right.
adjust in different ways. So I think Isaac Trotter's assessment was more fair. I'm a little bit more optimistic, just because I think some of these guys like Neo can bounce back and take a step forward. I think Brown can also elevate his game working with Malone, and I think Abel's gonna be really good. I think Abel's a breakout a breakout player to watch this year in the conference, maybe even nationally. So I have a little bit more optimism than we've been hearing more nationally. I really don't agree with the take from Field of 68 that they're not a top 25 team. I think there's clearly talent on this team. Guys like Abel and Abdallas could be first round picks or at least uh, NBA draft picks next season. And Sam Kite is somebody that he's got lottery potential. He's just really raw. So we'll see how that plays out. But I disagree with it. I think we can get into my grade and assessment of Malone and where things are, but I'm a little more optimistic than the national media has been so far.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think Trotter's assessment is pretty much where I'm at. Fringe top 25 team with a chance to, have a few good weeks, move up to in between the 11 and 20 spot. I don't see us really cracking the top 10 at any point. But I think you can only have so many expectations under a new coach in year one, and I hope in this day and age of needing things to be immediate and no patience in sports and things taking time to build that Carolina fans understand that this is going to take a little while. And what we're looking for this year is not a Final Four. I mean, we get it, then great, and that's wonderful. But that shouldn't be the expectation in any way, shape, or form. What in my mind should be a level and a measure of success throughout the year is consistency and growth. And so if things we struggled with under Hubert was getting a 15-point lead, blowing it, getting down 15 early, coming back, falling just short. I don't think you're going to see that kind of similar game rhythm under Coach Malone. Here and there, maybe, but I'm hoping that's not the case, and that ultimately there'll be some more consistency in how these games go. But again, it's going to take him some time in year one. Agree with you on Matt Abel. I think his ceiling is really the highest of any player in terms of just raw talent. I think Abdallas is your assist guy on this team. I really think he's going to be kind of the conductor and hopefully be dishing it out. And again, with Kaita down low, the question mark is the college basketball game, which is again going back to my point earlier, why Jaren's going to need to be so strong and be rebounding down low and giving that support too, especially early on. Those early games don't matter all that much, but they do affect the record. You don't want to drop all three, in the Maui tournament when that comes around. Carolina's not in it this year, and I think we're in the Dickie V Classic. Maybe only I think it's one game over Thanksgiving, which is
One game
interesting.
Black Friday
Yeah.
against
So
West
it's a
Virginia and
little
Charlotte.
different than years past, but yeah, you don't want to drop that and then suddenly drop the ACC SEC Challenge game, stuff like that. Um, so that's kind of where I'm at. An overall grade with Malone, I think I'm on like the B plus air. If we would have gotten Juke Harris coming in as your guard, I'm in the A range because I was really high on Juke and enjoyed him last year. And if you get some of the bigs that were out there, but I think the Vesar situation really complicated that because I think Malone's expectation was that he was coming back. And that kind of took everybody off guard, and so you do have to adjust, and that's life in the transfer portal nowadays. But I think the hype around the program is back, and I think again that's the most important thing, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive energy. I think the other thing is there's so much substance behind that in terms of how Michael Malone has approached the job so far. He's really attacked this position from day one. Had his press conference. Was it maybe the day after the national championship? He's announced
Hmm.
the morning of the national championship game in April, and then that press conference. I thought he won the press conference by talking about the history of Carolina basketball. He's somebody who reveres Coach Smith and his dad,
Hmm.
who actually was coach with the Detroit Pistons and was one of the leading architects behind the Jordan rules, which is something maybe we go into in the offseason. A cool story there, but um, he's somebody that understands and reveres Carolina basketball, and that was clear. And then he's incorporated and made the Carolina family very involved and at the center of this program going forward, which was a huge question when you were going outside the family, right? I
Hmm.
don't know it was going to be that way with all the candidates they were looking at. And so
Agreed.
it's credit to Malone for keeping guys on staff like Sean May and Pat Sullivan and bringing other guys back in, whether it be Brandon Robinson or Deion Thompson. So I really like what he's done from a program building perspective. I think it's been really savvy. And then he also has pivoted really quickly and aggressively. And I'm with you. I wanted Duke Harris really badly, him being a North Carolina guy from Salisbury. I like that Malone took a big swing at trying to get him late in the process because that's part of the challenge this first year was the portal opened that night of the championship and he probably hadn't even moved into his office yet, right? So he was behind a little bit, and so it was going to be a challenge to get somebody like that. But I like that you just went after Juke. I do agree with the Vasar situation. It seemed like Vasar was, as we learn more now looking back, it seems like he was always set on leaving, that he was over college basketball. He was ready to move on with his life
Yeah.
and go pro. And so that's the one question mark or mark I would say against the offseason that I would look back at because they could have moved much more quickly with some of the other options that were out there, some of the bigger names in the portal. That being said, I think how they've attacked and pivoted when things haven't worked out the way they would have wanted with their first option, they've done really well. Because to get someone like Kaita's a blue chip recruit, and
Mm.
he's reclassing. He's a little bit early on, but he's somebody that Duke really wanted for the following season. And Kansas, Kentucky, they were all on him as well. So he's got a lot of potential. So all that to say, I like the way they've attacked. He's attacked the position. I give him an A for the process. I think the outcome didn't always go the way that we would have hoped, or he would have hoped necessarily. But I think the process he's putting together and just the foundation of his staff impresses me. Now, in terms of the roster has a lot of questions. So I think I separate that from him as his work that he's done as the head coach in the offseason so far.
Yeah, I think the more I think about this, you've really got five guys as your starters who uh, potentially are all looking to take that growth year, right? And that's that's a that's a big
Every
risk.
single
Like
one.
Matt,
Yep.
yeah, like quite literally every single one, or adapt to the college game in general. So yeah, that's your biggest question mark for sure. The good news is down in Charlotte, we've got a backup team and cheering for Wes Miller and Marcus Page. So things don't work out in Chapel Hill. Pivot to there, and actually, one of my friend's husbands is an assistant coach on that roster as well. So some invested interest for me. Let's go Niners. I don't know.
Well, and there's also, I mean, as we pivot to talking about summer league as we start to wrap up, you can at least during the summer and into the NBA season get behind these guys
Hmm.
like Caleb Wilson. He was just so electric and
Yeah.
personality wise, but also his performance last year. He called his shot by saying in his introduction video at UNC that he wanted to be in the rafters. When he walks into the Smith Center, he's motivated every day because he thinks about Jordan and he expects to be in the rafters. And he is. He's gonna his jersey's gonna be honored. I think it was gonna be tough for him to be player of the year last year. But if he doesn't get hurt, I think he would have been a first team All American by the end of the year. So he's somebody that is a rookie of the year candidate. Excited that he's getting on the court. We're recording on July 9th. His first game is the 10th with the Bulls against the Grizzlies tomorrow night, and that's an 8 o'clock prime time tip. I'm gonna be locked into that because
I'm with you.
he's already talking about how he just has a singular focus. He's not going out there to just get a run in here with his new team. He's out there to put guys through the rim every possession, to win every possession, ultimately win every game in front of him. So it's gonna be fun to watch.
I think he's already won over the hearts of Chicago Bulls fans just in the first week or two that he's been drafted. I mean, the chatter that I've seen is just like, man, how do you not love this kid? Like, oh, I'm more excited than I was than even the moment we drafted him. It's like, yep, it's exactly what we felt in Chapel Hill. Just personality, drive, uh, ceiling is just outrageous. And so, I fully expect him to show out tomorrow. I really do. And it's been fun to watch all the college basketball guys. You've seen Darius Acuff have some really good games. You've seen Darren Peterson have some games. Just a reminder of how special this past season was. And man, we got in 2020 we got robbed of Obi Toppin in the tournament because of
Yeah.
COVID, and then getting robbed of Caleb Wilson is right up there. It's unfortunate, but yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah, it would be excited to see him, and then it would be exciting to see guys like Henry Vasar as well. We won't touch on it too much today, but I know He did not go in the first round like he and many expected him to. So he's probably got a chip on his shoulder as well going into summer league, even with the Hawks. But he's going to be somebody who they're getting going coming up here as well. That's actually July 9th, 4:30, so later today, uh, against the Spurs. And RJ Davis is on that Spurs roster for summer league. So that'll be fun to see RJ back out there against Henry and just see how both those guys look in their first summer league action. And a couple other guys that would be fun for Carolina fans to follow in summer league here. And summer league runs from today, July 9th to July 19th. So we got a little over a week of action here. But other guys that are in summer league, Seth Trimble was undrafted free agent. He's with the Wizards. And then familiar faces like Drake Powell with the Nets and Cormac Ryan and Pete Nance, both with the Bucks. Cormac had an awesome end to the year with the Bucks, got some time, called up with the big squad there and did really well. So it would be fun to see him back out there. And hopefully he gets matched up on some Dukies and gets to remind them of what he did in Cameron a couple years ago.
What a classic performance, and the celebration afterwards on Franklin, an all-timer, to be honest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's just fun to me that we get a basketball fix and we get to, like you said, it's Carolina basketball players, but also college basketball players that this loaded freshman class and draft class, we get to see them in action. So that's going to be pretty electric in Vegas, July 9th through July 19th.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. So when the World Cup wraps up here in a week and a half or so, and you're waiting around for football season, not much going on. There's some baseball games in the background. Don't forget summer league over the next week in July, and just to keep track of these guys. In August, I think there's going to be just some really exciting potential in honestly the top 10 to 15 guys that were drafted, which is insane. So just want to close the show out with a point out to Caleb. Always representing the Carolina brand, getting that interview and saying, "Where's the camera?" and saying, shout out Carolina, shout out Chapel Hill. You just love to see it. He wears that, on his shoulder all day, every day, taking it to Chicago with him. And I think he's always going to be kind of tied back to the Carolina community, like a lot of former players are, like almost all of them are. It's a really special vibe, and it's, again, nice to see Mike Malone continue that and to understand the culture going forward. Think Coach Malone is going to be a good fit. Really happy with the direction that this program's headed in. And just like any offseason, we're ready for October and November to be here. But we're going to have a lot more news. I'm sure there'll be NCAA news in general. Who knows what kind of rules changes they'll announce. We'll be on more constantly in the months leading up to October and November. And who knows, maybe late night with Mike Malone will be back. I don't know what that looks like yet. He'll be doing something though.
It will be interesting to see how just what his new imprints on the program, and he talked about in his press conference. It's going to be different.
Yeah.
The basketball on the court and just the program off will be a little bit different, and embrace it. And so it is exciting to see what that looks like, while also still incorporating very much Carolina basketball history and the history of winning is the biggest one. So we'll see what happens this upcoming season. I would say the destination for this upcoming season is unknown. But like you said, the trajectory of the program is very much on an upward trend. So excited to see where things go.
Totally. Yeah. Hey, good to be back on with you. Looking forward to doing a lot more, getting back to this more regularly. I think we're both just really excited about a new era of college hoops, and sports get a little quiet again after the World Cup. I was high on my Stanley Cup run here in Raleigh, and I've come down off of it, kind of been enjoying the ride of soccer. I'm not the biggest soccer fan, but man, I will be stoked when college basketball arrives. Cannot wait.
And at least it looks like State and Carolina are going to play twice. One is a non-conference game.
Yep.
We'll get into that in a future episode. But
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it is far off. So in the meantime, I'm locking in the summer league and can't wait to get into that this week.
Yep. Everybody stay cool, stay safe, and go Heels.
Go Heels.